Assalamualaikum and good morning to all my students. So for today's class, we are going to look at chapter 2, which is bibliographic control. Okay, so for your information class, we're not going to finish this chapter by today um, as we only look at several slides from this chapter. Before we proceed with our subject class, we need to define what is bibliography and what is bibliography control. Okay, so in library science and information management, bibliography is a listing of publication that plays a vital role in organization of information and also access to information. Okay, so bibliography is derived from two Greek words, which is biblion, book, and graphein, to write. Okay, and this bibliography is in library. It is a listing of materials, okay, which contains in this bibliography. So what is the list of materials, guys? List of materials meaning that it can be a book, yeah, it can be other sources as well. Next, we have bibliographic control, class. So what is the association, what is the connection between bibliography and bibliographic control? Okay, as I mentioned just now, class, bibliography is the process of listing the materials. It's the process of recording the materials. Okay, for example, we have book, again, and etc. So we list those book inside the bibliographies. Okay, so what is bibliographic control, class? This bibliographic control is arranged to organize. Okay, so when we talk on the organizations and arrangement, meaning that to make sure that this recorded information is in a correct medium, okay, so that it will assist the users on how to access those information quickly, yeah, faster, and so forth. All right, so when we organize this bibliographic, class, we need to establish a set of rules. So this set of rules, we call it as a standard. Okay, so what is the purpose of having this bibliographic control? Is to describe items held in libraries or on databases and to facilitate users access to information, memudahkan users to access those information. Okay, so what happens if we do not have this bibliographic control? Kalau tak ada graphic control, therefore the recorded information that listed in bibliography tadi, dia akan jadi cacah merbah. Alright, so it is difficult for the users to access to those information because this recorded information is not organized, it's not arranged, there is no rules. Okay, so bibliographic control is a good thing, whereby it is an operation, it is a method by which we organize all the recorded information, kita susun dia. Okay, so one of the examples of bibliographic control is cataloging. So cataloging is a recorded information, isn't it? Whereby you can find the library materials, the library resources, books, and etc. Okay, and it is organized. Organized meaning that we can search this information by using keyword, yeah, authors, by using subjects, by using the year of the books being published, and so forth. Okay, so I repeat, class, bibliography and bibliographic control. Bibliography, we just list those library materials inside the bibliography. So basically, class, bibliography ni is a book lah. Okay, it's a book, it's a printed and it's a non-printed format. Alright, it can be printed and it can be online lah. Okay, and this recorded information, guys, this bibliography, we need to organize those information inside the bibliography. So this process, we call it as a bibliography control. Right? These are the other definitions of bibliographic control. It is a process of organizing the information which enables a person to look for and obtain this information anytime, every time needed through a systematic accession. Okay, so as I mentioned before, this lesson, accession tu maksudnya kita nak attainment lah. Maksudnya kita nak mendapatkan, to obtain those information lah. You need to have systematic accession by accession number, by author, and so forth. And this bibliographic control is a series of operations which are intended to create effective lists of the various sources of information. Okay, so bibliographic is a list of the various sources of information, and we need to have this bibliographic control so that this effective list ataupun this list ni they become operation. Okay, operation meaning that it is beneficial to our users in accessing those information. Why we produce bibliographic lesson? Because bibliography is representations of our library collection. Okay, and for your information, this bibliography is created or produced by national libraries of each country. For example, in Malaysia, we have Bibliografi Negara Malaysia. Okay, so this Bibliografi Negara Malaysia is being created by a national library, and it consists of library materials that is published in Malaysia. Okay, so how about other countries, guys? Other countries also doing the same thing. Yeah, in fact, satu dunia doing the same thing. Okay, so each country, they have their own bibliography. So for example, in Singapore, they have their own Singapore National Bibliography, which consists of library materials that are published or created in Singapore. Okay, how about India? Pun sama juga. India, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia. Okay, semua sama. They have their own bibliography. Okay, so the purpose of bibliography control is to list information sources in a systematic manner to enable us to become aware of what information is available and where it can be located. Okay, so bibliography ni guys, it is a cataloging. Okay, whereby in this cataloging it lists all the library materials. Okay, and we can search for the information in this cataloging. Okay, kita boleh tengok dia punya author, by year, by title, and so forth. So why we need to control? Why we need to have this bibliographic control? So the purpose of controlling a bibliography are as follows. Okay, so before we proceed with those purposes, you need to know the bibliographic control definition. Okay, so bibliographic control is an operation, isn't it? Operations to make our bibliography organized and arranged according to established standards or established rules. Okay, so the first one is to provide access to documents and materials, meaning to obtain or retrieve those documents and materials lah. Okay, number two, as a guidance in information searching to facilitate searching. Okay, as a direction to help or advise users in information searching. Number three, bibliographic control is important because it is an important element for effective reference service. Okay, you know that in library class we have two types or two divisions of services. The first one is technical services, and the second one is information service, isn't it? So reference service is in this information service, which is handled with deal with users, okay, to handle inquiry and assist users in finding information that they want. Okay, next, to promote research. So by having this bibliographic control class, it will support and encourage research. You know what is research class? Research is an investigation, a study on certain topic, something, yeah. Okay, next, to record and to expand human knowledge. Okay, so by having this organization, yeah, of bibliography class, yeah, we will write down or tape tape human knowledge. Okay, so human knowledge meaning that individual experience lah. Alright, so each of the human ni, they have their own individual experience. Okay, lagi tinggi jawatan dia ataupun lagi berusia dia di dalam a certain position in an organization tu, therefore lagi tinggi human knowledge seseorang. Okay, therefore sebelum dia leave out the organization, sebelum dia bersara, retired, so we need to have, or we need to write down these types of human knowledge, individual experience. Okay, so bibliographic control class is to preserve human knowledge and to disseminate information, right? And number 6, to avoid duplication in research. Okay, so by having this bibliographic control class, therefore we will avoid all the copying, replication of others' work. Okay, tak ada replications of others' work, tak ada plagiarisms and whatsoever. And the last one is to promote cooperation in international and inter-institutional information trading and sharing. So by having this bibliographic control class, it establishes a standard, isn't it? So standard is a rule. So each of the countries class, when using ataupun accessing to our bibliography, they have the action or process of working together. So ada assistant kat situ. Okay, so it will streamline the process of working together, the process of collaboration between Malaysia and Singapore, for example, in assessing each of countries' bibliography. Boleh faham tak sini, guys? So meaning that the bibliography control ni, it consists of benefits. Okay, benefits to us as a user, yeah, benefits to countries, yeah, that have cooperation. Okay, for example, Malaysia and Thailand, Malaysia and Singapore. Okay, so each of the countries, they have their own bibliography, isn't it? Alright, so the functions of bibliography ni kita nak share with each of the countries. So kita nak borrow materials from other countries. Okay, so in order to borrow from other countries, guys, we need to look at the list, the bibliography list, apa materials yang ada. Alright, so by having this bibliographic control, guys, it will streamline the process of obtaining this information or obtaining these materials. Streamline itu maksudnya memudahkan. Alright, so in conclusion, guys, this bibliography control, dia memudahkan kita to access to information. Okay, class, so the rest of the slides, we'll be discussing about the levels and the types of controlling. Okay, so make sure you get the correct concepts of what are the levels of BC and what are the types of controlling. Okay, so once you tak faham, therefore you cannot proceed with the next slide. Alright? Okay, dengar elok-elok, dengar baik-baik. Okay, so we have 3 types of controlling. The first one is BC. The second one is national BC. And the last one is universal BC. Okay, UBC, NBC, and BC. Alright, so universal BC, guys, or UBC, guys, it covers universal and international levels. Okay, so meaning that, class, the concepts of UBC ni, the purpose of this UBC ni, is to make a basic bibliographic data on all publication in all countries are available and accepted to all users in the world. Okay, so this UBC ni kelas ya is to exchange bibliographic information among other libraries ataupun among other countries. So that is why levels dia adalah levels universal and international to exchange. Okay, for example, to exchange materials between Malaysia and Singapore, to exchange materials between Malaysia and Indonesia. Okay, so these types of controlling, bibliographic control ni is at levels of universal and international. Alright, so pokok pangkalnya, even though the types of controlling is universal BC class, but the root here is BC, bibliographic control. Okay, so when we mention about bibliographic control class here, it is operation ataupun it is the process of organizing information whereby kita create effective lists of the various sources of information. Okay, so for example class, database, the cataloging, bibliografi negara Malaysia in online version. So this is what we call as a BC. Tapi we call it as a universal because the levels at universal levels and at international levels. So bila kita cakap universal international levels, meaning that there is an exchange happens between our country and other countries. Okay, so that one is UBC. Next we have national BC or NBC. Okay, so what is national BC, class? This process, these types of controlling, involve collecting and cataloging materials of national materials ataupun national value. Okay, I repeat, class. This national bibliographic control is the process that involve collecting and cataloging materials of national value. So that is why the levels of BC ni at national level. Okay, so meaning that class that each of the country they have their own national BC. Okay, they collect the materials ataupun they do the cataloging materials too of their materials that created in that particular country. Okay, so what is the objective of doing this NBC class? Kenapa kita kena buat NBC? Okay, to contribute to our own library and information network. Okay, so let's say class ya, kita tak buat this NBC, therefore our library collections tu berterabur. Okay, so this NBC tu is like a platform, guys. It's like a medium whereby we build our national library. We can consider it as archival collections. Okay, this is a platform whereby we responsible in finding and recording material for the benefits of our national library. Okay, so meaning that class this NBC ni dibuat oleh National Library of each country. For example, in Malaysia, we have National Library of Malaysia. So they are responsible in doing this NBC. So they will collect all the materials from all libraries that resides in Malaysia. Okay, dia akan kumpulkan semuanya. Alright, so this is NBC, levels of national. And the last one is bibliographic control, BC. So again, class BC ni is a root lah, is a root term. Okay, whereby in the process of organizing the information, yeah. So the purpose of doing this bibliographic control is to enable or to facilitate a person to look for or obtain the information at any time, every time needed through a systematic accession. Okay, so bibliographic control is like a cataloging lah, whereby we create effective lists of the various sources of information. Okay, so ini level kat mana? Level for individual, for the users, for the organizational. Okay, so these are the levels of BC: universal, international, national, organizational, individual, and these are the types of controlling: UBC, NBC, and BC. Okay, so the rest of the slide class here will be discussing about each of these types. Alright class, so these are the 6 problems faced in bibliographic control. So as we learned in our previous notes last year, BC is organized, it's a system, it's a methods in organize our materials that produced in our country. Okay, so the bibliography itself, the term of bibliography itself is to list the materials. Okay, so cataloging lah, we list all the materials that reside in our country in a systematic way, so meaning that control. Alright, the problem faced by libraries in integrating into a computer-based cooperative library cataloging support system. So these are the problems. Okay, so the functions of doing this bibliographic control class is to maintain countries' national lists. Okay, for example, we have bibliography negara Malaysia, okay, in a printed method and also online version. Okay, so the first problem is regarding the political stability. In doing bibliographic control classes, it is by means of having a government subsidy, right? So in order to gain the government subsidy classes, the country politic must be stable. If the country politic is stable, it will cause the low level of economic growth. Right? So in conclusion classes, the influence of political stability on economic growth will lead to government subsidy. So library akan dapat lah the government subsidy at amount, number of amount for them to do the bibliographic control. Okay, and the second one is geographical problem class. This is to obtain exclusive material. Okay, exclusive material tu is a material that is difficult to find, due to the geographical ataupun due to the coverage area. Okay, and for example, materials in Latin alphabet, material yang very classic. Okay, so it's difficult lah for us to obtain this kind of materials. In terms of the geographical, dia terlalu jauh ataupun dia terlalu pendalaman. So this is geographical problem. Okay, so in order to have this exclusive material class, you need to ensure that the coverage is reasonable, senang untuk dicapai, didapati. Okay, next we have technical in terms of the skill staff. You need to know class, each of our staff, do they have different skills? Okay, especially staff who is resist to change. Resist to change maksudnya sebelum ni dia dah biasa dengan the printed version. Okay, but when we want to embark into online version and what's not, it is difficult for these staff untuk change their job design. Okay, so this is one of the issues lah in skill staff, tapi sedikit sajalah. Okay, and next we have economic problem. Okay, economic well-being of a country is an indicator of success or failure of the economy. Okay, again class year economy. In doing this BC class year, we need to have a sum of money. Alright, so if the economy well-being of our country is fail, so it's difficult for us to get the money for the BC project. Tapi if the economy well-being of a country is a success, therefore we will get the money. Okay, the government will inject the money to us in doing the bibliographic control. Okay, next we have a language problem. Okay, so language problem is regarding the semantic problem, the jargon. Okay, the materials which is hard to use and hard to understand. Okay, for example, materials that is the exclusive materials just now class, Latin alphabet, materials which is classic that use language that we are not familiar with. So this is language problem. And the last one is availability of publication. Okay, so availability of publication is the acquisition in libraries. Okay, the acquisition in libraries is not enough class. So we need to know the whereabouts of the materials. Di manakah materials itu berada? The availability of materials. Now we move to the first types of controlling, which is UBC. Yeah, UBC stands for Universal Bibliographic Control. So the purpose of this UBC is to exchange our materials, our library materials, to other countries. Okay. IFLA, International Federation of Library Association and Institution, has proposed to UNESCO that one major policy need to be established in order to create worldwide system aimed to control and exchange bibliographic information. Alright, and the purpose is to make basic bibliographic data on all publications in all countries are available and acceptable to all users in the world. Alright, so IFLA class, they come up with an idea. Okay, so how are we going to exchange our bibliographic information? Yeah, in between Malaysia and Singapore, between Malaysia and Thailand for example. So how? So IFLA they propose to UNESCO, why not if we create a UBC? So UBC ni is a standard platform lah. It's a bibliographic data whereby each of the countries tu they can borrow ataupun they can exchange materials, or they can view our materials by using this one standard system, which is UBC. So this is the quick concept of UBC. Okay, UBC was promoted by IFLA in early 1970s. IFLA proposed UBC to the UNESCO, and IFLA reiterated that this UBC should be adopted as a major policy objective of the promotion of a worldwide system for the control and exchange bibliographic information. So the keyword here, class, is to exchange the bibliographic information. Okay, is to exchange our cataloging, is to exchange our library materials. Okay, so the concept is the same, whereby kita nak exchange our cataloging data. Okay, And UBC is a corporation that combines effort in bibliographic information at national level of countries for creating an international network systems. Okay, we know that UBC itu is at level of international and universal, isn't it? Tapi before it become UBC itu, it is the effort of the national level of countries. So meaning that each of the countries, so they have their national library kan. Okay, so the effort so is being brought up by the national levels, national libraries tu. Okay, so barulah kita boleh jadikan dia as a UBC. So when you start collecting materials at national levels, then you can start exchange with other countries, and this is the moment whereby UBC happens. These are the two organizations that are concerned with UBC, okay, IFLA and UNESCO. Okay, so if we look at the previous history class, the history of UBC, it was proposed by IFLA to UNESCO, isn't it? Okay, so the purpose of UBC is to make a basic bibliographic data on all publication in all countries available to all users in this world. Okay, so UBC is a platform lah, whereby each country itu they can exchange, they can share their materials to other countries. So without this UBC, the sharing, the exchange will not going to happen. Okay, so soalan ni pun selalu keluar dalam final exam class ya. Milestones of UBC, there are 3 meetings or conference that has contributed to the establishment of UBC. Alright, so after IFLA proposed UBC to UNESCO, these are the 3 meetings throughout the establishment of UBC. So the first one is International Conference on Cataloging Principles, okay, dekat Paris. And then we have an international meeting of cataloging experts at Copenhagen, and the last one is International Congress on National Bibliographies. Okay, so the rest of the slides will be discussing about each of these conference or meeting. Okay, let's take a look at the first meeting or the first conference, yeah, with the establishments of UBC. Okay, International Conference on Cataloging Principles, which was held at Paris, 1961. To rationalize the cataloging standards such as, okay, in this meeting last year, all the librarians get in together to discuss pertaining to the cataloging standard. So what is cataloging standard, class? Meaning that it is to make it more efficient. So everybody, each countries in this world, class, yeah, will use the same cataloging standard to accessing this information, or to exchange or to share the information, class. Okay, the first one is standardizations of the choice and form heading. Alright, so meaning, class, yeah, the choice and form of heading too, it is the preferred standard, yeah? the accepted standard. Okay, for example, Malay names, Chinese name, yeah, Indian name, and so forth. Okay, so kalau Malay names, adakah kita perlu ubah dia? Okay, so tak perlu ubah dia, for example. Okay, how about Chinese name? So these are the standard, class. These are the standards that we are talking here. So every countries, each of the countries will follow the same standard. Kalau kata tak ubah, so kita tak ubah dia. Alright, and then number 2 is the concept of main entry. Okay, so when we talk about main entry, guys, so we have different types of main entry. For example, we have author main entry. Okay, we have main entry by title, or we have corporate body main entry. Okay, so let's say if the author main entry, let's say, for example, Nur Azlina Azmi. So this is one of the examples of main entry by author. Okay, faham tak guys? Okay, number 3, we have personal or corporate headings. Yeah, personal or corporate headings. For example, class, personal heading is personal names. For example, John Smith. Okay, so kalau in cataloging, rasa we need to terbalikkan dia, isn't it? Yeah, Smith, John. Yeah, Smith, John. Okay, so this is personal heading. And how about corporate heading, Rasa? Corporate heading, for example, Persatuan Pustakawan Malaysia, PPM, or Human Society of Malaysia. Okay, so the heading will start with the corporate ataupun the personal, the author's name tadi. Okay, so this is what we call as a personal or corporate headings. Okay, headings tu dia punya kepala dia for entries. Okay, next, number 4, we have the use of uniform headings for consistent. Okay, usually class, uniform headings ni appeared more than one title. Okay, so the establishment of this uniform title or uniform heading is an aspect of authority control. Alright, okay, for example, class, for example, uniform heading is a choice among terms, is a synonyms. Okay, FBI. Yeah, you can search instead of searching FBI, class, you can search under United States Federal Bureau of Investigation. Boleh faham tak, class? Okay, I repeat, class, for example, FBI. You can also do the cross-reference. Cross-reference maksudnya other possible words. Okay, other possible words ataupun synonyms. Ataupun choice among terms. Okay, so instead of FBI, class, you can search under United States Federal Bureau of Investigation. So this is what we call as a uniform headings. Okay, maksudnya it is a choices of possible words. It is a cross-reference. Cross-reference tu maksudnya selain daripada FBI, you can search nama dia yang lain, iaitu United States of Federal Bureau of Investigation. Okay, okay, same goes with nickname, class. Okay, let's say the nickname is Jim Jones. Okay, so who is Jim Jones ni? Jim Jones ni adalah American punya ajaran sesat, if I'm not mistaken lah, Jim Jones. Okay, so kita terbalikkan dia in cataloging standard, Jones Jim, nama family first, isn't it? Jones Jim. Alright, so uniform headings, guys, instead of Jones Jim, you can search under Jones James W. Okay, so meaning that Jim Jones tu nama yang lain dia adalah James Warren Jones. Okay, so selain daripada James Jones ataupun Jones Jim, you can search under Jones James W, yang membawa maksud James Warren Jones, nama sebenar dia, the actual names. Okay, boleh faham tak, kelas? Okay, so in conclusion, class, the uniform heading so is the choices of other terms ataupun synonyms. For example, yang tadi lah, ya, yang mudah faham FBI, we can search under nama yang lain iaitu United States Federal Bureau of Investigation. Okay, so this is the output from this international conference on cataloging principles. Okay, to make to make to make it more efficient ataupun uh, to make a preferred standard lah, accepted standard, so that every country can use the same standard. The second meeting is International Meeting of Cataloging Experts held in Copenhagen 1969. Okay, so this meeting is to create a system for the international exchange of information and establish and distributed a standard bibliographic description of each publication by national agency in the country of origins of the publication. Okay, so meaning that in this meeting, let's say kita dah start lah to create a system which is UBC. So the purpose is to international exchange information and so forth. Okay, and at early 1970s, IFRA Committee on Cataloging established international office for UBC at the British Library Reference Division in London. Okay, so in this second international meeting, kita dah nampak dah dia punya the serious level of this project. Let's say kita create the system UBC and then we start our office at London and so forth. Next, we have International Congress on National Bibliography. So in this meeting, let's say, each of the members, it is a consensus of all members to use the ISBD, the International Standard Bibliographic Description, ISBD. So this ISBD ni being produced ataupun it's a set of rules produced by the IFLA, okay, to create a bibliographic description in a standard form, especially for use in a bibliography or library catalog. Okay, so ISBD ni kita selalu tengok dekat cataloging tu kelas. Start with the authors and then we have a year, we have the title, we have the of the description lah pertaining to the materials. Okay, description tu maksudnya yang saya mention tadi lah, author, year, tajuk, illustration, colours, pages and so forth. Okay, and in this meeting class year, members agreed to establish guidelines for any printed bibliography publication. Okay, and in this meeting also to discuss and give suggestion in the controlling of the printed and electronic bibliography. There are 7 importance of UBC. We know that UBC needs to exchange the materials, to share the materials. Therefore, the first one, to facilitate access to document and materials. By having this UBC cluster, it will make the countries easy to access or easy to obtain the materials. Next, we have to guide users when searching information. Okay, by having this UBC cluster, we can advise the users what are the materials that they want, and we can lead the users to show the users these are the materials that reside in our country ataupun that reside in our bibliographic control, okay, that reside in our database. Okay, next, as a very important element for effective reference. Reference service handles inquiry and assists users in finding information. Therefore, class, by having a UBC class, it can develop efficient and effective means of providing reference service to users. Okay, so in effective reference service class, cataloging the database is an important tool for them to answer the inquiry of users. Next, we have recording and expanding knowledge. Okay, the recording and expanding knowledge cluster, we share the information. Okay, we list the materials When we list the materials, maksudnya kita record the materials, okay. And then expanding the knowledge, we share the information, we share the knowledge, kita panjangkan knowledge tu to other countries ataupun to other users, okay. And then we recreate the knowledge based on the readings, the knowledge cycle tadi kelas, and so forth. Next, we have to encourage R&D. Okay, so this is one of the importance of UBC. We encourage R&D by listing all the materials that is useful ataupun that is helpful for the research and development. Research and development tu kajian lah. It's a specific study, yes. Okay, and we list all the materials that associate with the study. So itu gunanya UBC. We list all the materials and users can use the materials too for the support of research and development. Okay, next we have to avoid duplication in R&D. By having this UBC cluster, the researchers know what experiments are going on around them. Okay, so by having this UBC cluster, the research dia tahu dah, okay, this particular study dah ada orang buat. Okay, so as a researcher cluster, when they refer to UBC cluster, they know what other studies are going on around them. What are the studies that have been developed? Apa yang ada, apa yang belum ada. Okay, so bila yang dah ada tu, therefore they tak buat lagi lah. So this is the best method lah in the best way to combat the duplication. Okay, and the last one is to encourage cooperation, exchange and sharing of information. And of course, this is the objective of UBC lesson, is to encourage cooperation, exchange and sharing of information among the countries and throughout the countries. Okay class, so this is one of your tutorial tasks for this week. Your tutorial task is to produce two pages of essay of the importance of UBC. Okay, so you have 7 main points here. Make sure you have the introduction parts, you have the main points, the seven points, 7 importance, as well as the conclusion. Okay, so each of the main points you can explain in more details with the example. Okay, so this is the preparation for you untuk jawab soalan test and final test. Sebab importance of UBC class, soalan ni selalu keluar. Alright, so for again I repeat lah, for today's ataupun for this week punya tutorial, you need to produce 2 pages of essay on the importance of UBC. So make sure there is an introduction part, there is a main points, so your main point is 7 main points, and the last one is conclusion. So each of the main points here you need to explain, plus you need to give the examples of each of the importance and submit it on Google Classroom. As we discussed before this lesson in our previous notes, there are 2 levels of UBC. The first one is national and the second one is international. Why we need to have UBC? Okay, the first one is for educational advancement, to exchange information, to support the research and development, to expand, to record the human knowledge. So ini semua constitute educational advancement. Okay, the second one is for cultural enrichment. Yeah, kita share our materials with other countries. Sambil tu kita bawa our culture. Okay, kita show our culture. We expose our culture to other countries. Okay, and the last one, why we need to have this UBC is for scientific, technical, and economic progress. Okay, meaning that we support the research and development, we create more knowledge, okay, and we avoid those duplication. This is for economic progress, yeah, for the economic well-being of our country. There are two requirements of UBC, so meaning that this UBC class is at national level, and the second one, this UBC is at international level. Okay, so at national level class, yeah, it is to ensure that it is possible to make the bibliographic record of each new publication as it issued. Okay, meaning that we need to have a legal deposit, yeah, similar government regulation, and etc. So uh, in order to record new publication, in order to kumpul the new publication at national level class, yeah, so kita kena use the legal way. Okay, so legal deposit, responsibility of publishers, yeah? We have a deposit of library material acts, and we have preservations of book acts. So without this government regulation class, yeah, kita tak mampu untuk collect ataupun do the collection development on the national materials. Okay, so we need to have this regulation, the law, in order to paksa all the publishers to send their materials to our library. So what is the responsibilities of publisher? So under this act class here, publishers are required to deposit all library materials published in the country to the National Depository. Okay, so meaning that we enforce the rules to force the publisher class here to deposit their library materials. Deposit tu maksudnya to put their materials in our library. Okay, so under this act class here, it is compulsory for publisher to deposit 5 copies of printed materials within 1 month of its publication for books and 1 week for serials, for example magazine and so forth. Okay, and another 2 copies of non-printed materials are required to be deposited within 1 year of its publication. Okay, next we have Deposits of Library Material Act and Preservations of Book Act. So Deposit of Library Material Act tu sama yang macam tadi, whereby the publisher it is compulsory for the publisher to deposit 5 nisbah 2, the 5 printed materials and 2 non-printed materials to library. Okay, and then we have Preservations of Book. The National Depository Centre was established under the Deposit of Library Material Acts. So the National Depository Centre is the National Library itself lah. For example, in Malaysia we have National Library of Malaysia. So National Library of Malaysia, they have their own unit which is called National Depository Centre. Okay, so this is a centre whereby the publisher akan deposit lah the library the materials that create in our country. Okay, so this centre is fully responsible for the enforcement of this act in the effort towards the building of a national collection of publication received under the Deposit of Library Material Act and the Preservation of Books Act 1966. Each National Bibliographic Agency. So who is the National Bibliographic Agency class? The National Library lah. Okay, National Library of each country. For example, in Malaysia kita ada National Library of Malaysia. Kalau Singapore, they have National Library of Singapore. So they act as a National Bibliographic Agency. Okay, so their responsible class here is to establish the authoritative bibliographic record for each new publication issued in the country, meaning that they need to describe the materials, cataloging lah maksudnya. Okay, and then after they do the cataloging, they need to publish those record as soon as possible. Okay, and they need to produce the record in a standard physical form, sama ada in cards, machine readable tape, and etc. Okay, and then they receive those record, distribute and exchange those record with other countries. So kita start exchange the records, and then we need the last one. We need to create a retrospective national bibliography. Okay, national bibliography itu maksudnya bibliografi negara lah. Okay, kalau Malaysia we have bibliografi negara Malaysia. Okay, retrospective ni adalah that list material yang dah pass. So this is what we call as a retrospective national bibliography. So meaning that class in our library dia ada bibliografi negara Malaysia banyak version. Okay, so retrospective, yang terkini and so forth. So that is why we need to have this UBC, the online version, so that we can update dia selalu. Kalau ada new materials coming in, so we just update on this database. So what is the UBC requirements at the international level class? Yang ni tak ada apa lah. Okay, so at international level, we have a mutual agreement lah, whereby we will use this universal system, this UBC ni lah, as a universal standard. We accept ataupun we cooperate to form a system that are acknowledged and accepted universally. And each national bibliography agency for each country itu is the organization that responsible for creating the authoritative bibliographic record of the publication of its own country. Alright, so in order to exchange the information class, the national library of each country itu bertanggungjawab to create their own bibliographic record. Okay, so kalau dia orang tak create, how are we going to exchange, isn't it? So this is the responsible of each national bibliographic agency, which is national library of each country, to create those record. The last requirement of UBC is to have an international standard in creating the bibliographic record. So each of the countries to class when they create their own bibliographic record they need to obey ataupun they need to follow the international standards yang kita dah have a mutual understanding masa meeting and conference dekat Paris, Copenhagen tadi tu. Okay, so what are the standards that we are talking here, guys? The standard is content and physical form. Okay, the question is, what happen if each of the countries they create their own bibliographic records, they buat cataloging lah for each of their materials that record in their countries, tapi they are not follow the international standard. What happen? So apa akan jadi? It's difficult lah for us to share with other countries sebab dah tak sama sistem, dah tak sama standard. Okay, therefore we need to have this standard, the mutual standard class in terms of the content. Content tu maksudnya the elements to be included in the bibliography record, the style and the functions mesti sama. Okay, so kalau make entry by author, so make sure the author name is correct. Kalau Malay name for example, make sure you have the standard way of organizing the Malay names, Chinese name, Indian names and so forth. Alright, you need to follow the international standard. Okay, and then in terms of the physical form, this is regarding the compatibility of your bibliographic record tadi lah, the cataloging tu, compatibility of machine record and standardizations of catalog cards. Okay, so if you kalau you ada catalog cards, so make sure the catalog cards is in the standard physical form. Okay, maksudnya kertas dia sama, the size of the catalog card is sama, and so forth. Kalau in machine records pula, meaning that online lah, so make sure it is compatible, sama with other system that is used by Singapore, sama with other cataloging system that is used by Indonesia. So this is what we call as the international standard. Okay class, so that's all for today's lecture. So if you have any difficulties, if you do not understand each of the slides, then let me know so that I can explain to you in more easiest way. Okay, I know that this time around the notes is quite difficult because there are too many new terms that is a bit confusing. Okay, but don't be afraid class ya, nanti you akan faham ya, lepas dah banyak chapter kita dah cover, you akan lebih faham lagi. Okay, but don't wait until the next chapter lah. So kalau you tak faham this week punya lecture, please let me know. Okay, and don't forget to complete ataupun to produce your 2 pages of essay, and submit it on GC. Okay, so that's all. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.